I remember when heist movies had memorable characters and scenarios. Den of Thieves certainly didn't, and its only slightly better follow-up, Den of Thieves 2, Pantera, tries at the very least, though its efforts ultimately fall flat. The film has less action, which isn't a bad thing since it builds up suspense for the actual heist and its aftermath, and more talking. Whereas the first film was more gritty and violent, the sequel is more polished and developed. But it's also the same amount of underwhelming, failing to fully launch, despite an intriguing setup. Den of Thieves 2 brings back Gerard Butler and O'Shea Jackson Jr. as Nick and Donnie, respectively, while adding a plethora of new characters that range from being potentially fascinating to downright unnecessary. Swedish actress Evan Ahmad plays Giovanna, Donnie's right hand, and she's easily the best addition to the film. There's an air of mystery around her and her on-screen presence is commanding, which is why I was so disappointed that her character is squandered by a mediocre script, by writer-director Christian Gudgast, that she barely feels like a fully fledged character at all. My frustration with the rest of the characters doubles. Giovanna and Slavko, Salvatore Esposito, another character in Donnie's heist group, seem to have an intriguing relationship. They go way back considering how they interact with each other, but there is never a time when Pantera actually pays them any mind. This is where the film's preoccupation with talking would have benefited the building of tension. There's no point in removing so much of the action to insert dialogue if it's not going to develop character dynamics. Why else would we care about whether Donnie and company get caught or not? The sequel does find its sweet spot, though, after Nick decides to join Donnie and his team for the diamond heist, involving a setup that sees Donnie working at the World Diamond Center in France. At this point, Nick has nothing to lose, having lost his job, his kids, and most of his money. And if he can't beat Donnie, why not join him? This leads to some of the best scenes of the film, including one where Nick and Donnie go out for food and get to know each other better after being thrown off a yacht. There's an untapped potential in their camaraderie if only Pantera played into it more often and more aggressively. The lackluster acting overall doesn't help matters. There are decent moments every so often, and for a while, it's enough to hold my attention, but for some reason, Gouda just doesn't try very hard to elevate any of the script's more interesting aspects. Den of Thieves 2 is the poorer version of the Fast and Furious movies. Without the charm and chemistry of its characters, the plot would just be too outlandish and frustrating to be fun. And therein lies the main problem with Pantera. It takes itself too seriously and doesn't know how to let loose and enjoy the ride.